First up, Phil Murray on X asks, why blue cards? Why not just make all yellow cards sin bin style?
Interesting. Well, give us a little context when it comes to what he's talking about here.
So IFAB has come up with this idea that FIFA is going to start trialing at lower level competitions of introducing a blue card, which is something in between a yellow card and a red card. If a player commits a cynical foul and receives a blue card, he would have to exit the match for 10 minutes or so, and then he'd be allowed to come back. If you pick up 2 blue cards, that counts as a red.
Yeah, so as is often the case when it comes to these things, you float it out there and you see the reaction. And there's some inevitable type of reaction, and you can imagine out there, whether it's big-time coaches or players or fans, everybody's got an opinion. A lot of people are like, why are we messing with this? This is ridiculous. This is not going to help the game. Well, first off, this is all designed to help the game. This is all designed to deal with things that I think in general people recognize are problems within the game. And in this case, we're talking about preventing a promising attack, so professional fouls, whatever you want to call them, and dissent. Now, dissent has been something that leagues and the sport has dealt with, well, for decades. But I do think that it's come to a point here where they really want to try to do things that are going to have an impact. And you're not going to completely get rid of it all, but at least you're going to lessen it. And if you don't feel that dissent is a problem, and if you have no problem with players and coaches, for that matter, screaming and yelling at referees, they've talked in the past of mass confrontation and all that kind of stuff, then that's your problem. I happen to think that it's a problem. I happen to think that doing things to at least attempt to eradicate it is something that should be done. And I do think that something like this can help when it comes to the blue cards. As we said, so the blue cards would only be for those 2 types of things. And I think they are trying to differentiate between the inevitable recklessness that happens in any sport, but certainly in soccer, and it's kind of a traditional part of the physical game out there. They're trying to differentiate that between, I guess, cynical actions that happen on the field that are happening with true intent when it comes to going up and telling a referee you suck and F you, or pulling somebody back that's on a breakaway, or cutting somebody down because they are on a 3 versus 2 or something like that. And I think that that's admirable for IFAB and for the game to at least attempt to address it. But the devil's in the details. And so how this gets implemented, and I know there's a lot of question as to, okay, if somebody has a professional foul, or if somebody does something dissent that warrants a blue card, and then that person leaves for 10 minutes, what does the game then ultimately look like? It should be noted that a blue card is the same as a yellow card in that if you came back on the field after your 10-minute penalty box, we can't call it a penalty box because there's already a penalty box on the field. But so if we're calling the sin bin, you're 10 minutes off the field. Once you come back and then you get a yellow card, then that's a yellow and a red, and so it's the same type of thing. But would there just be 10 minutes of the most egregious delaying of the game ever in order to get through that 10 minutes? And would it be like a time situation where if people are doing things to waste time, the referee adds it on to the 10 minutes going forward? So all those questions have to be asked. But it's all in an effort to say, you know what? If I do this, I am going to hurt myself because I'm getting a card, and I'm going to hurt my team because I have to leave for 10 minutes and my team is going to have to play down a man. I don't think that it complicates things. I don't think it fixes everything completely, but I do think that it is worth looking into. I do think that it's worth testing, and I do think ultimately that that we are going to have some sort of color and some sort of card like this. But ultimately, to your question, when it comes to Phil, why not make all yellow cards sin bin style? Like I said, I think they want to differentiate between the things that we're talking about and just a foul that happens, albeit a bad foul that's worth a yellow card. Either way, you're in trouble. And again, just because you get a blue card doesn't mean that it also doesn't qualify as a yellow card. It just means that you also have to go out for 10 minutes. Mosse, thoughts?
My initial reaction was positive, but I've talked myself out of it by listening to people like Tottenham manager Postecoglou, who expressed concern about the time wasting that would go on during those 10 minutes when a team was down a man. So I think on balance, I think this creates more problems than it solves.
Okay, so how would you solve the problem?
I'm good with yellow and red.
Just keep getting yellow cards.
Yeah, you know, my father, who I spoke to yesterday about this, he hates sending offs. He thinks it ruins games, a team having to play down a man.
Okay.
So he would be in favor of replacing red cards with something where a player only spends a certain amount of time away, and then afterwards maybe he has to get subbed out for a different player or something. But he just hates the idea of sitting down watching a game, and especially early on, a team has a guy sent off and then it completely ruins the game and he has to watch 11v10 for the rest of the game.
This drives me crazy. I mean, and in a bigger context, it drives me crazy because if there are no consequences for your action, then you will not only allow, but you will encourage people to do things. I want consequences. I want severe consequences because I want to plant that seed. Players, they're not dumb, okay? They will adapt and adjust to whatever the rules and regulations are. Will they push the envelope? Yeah. Will they try to get away with stuff? Yes. But if you don't do things and plant the seed that this could be problematic, then they will continue not only to do the things that they already do, but they'll try to figure out some other things to do. To your father's point, do I want to wreck the game? No, but I would argue that the things that we see and that we're talking about, whether it's the horrible fouls, whether it is the delay of game, whether it is stopping the promising attack, whether it's the dissent and the mass confrontation, all of those things, I think that they ruin the game. I don't want them in the game. And so I want things done that have the potential to mitigate it.
I might not be explaining his point of view that well. Perhaps we'll have Mon as a guest on the pod.
Okay,
he
perfect.
Can, debate you on this.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops twice a week right here on my very own YouTube page. The only way to stay up to date is to hit that subscribe button down below. Size the day, and see you soon.